Hi and welcome to True Crime, a channel dedicated to the dark underworld of criminal activity carried out by gangsters, mobsters, cartel leaders, and others. Let's get started. Police in Plainfield, Wisconsin, entered one of the most terrible crime scenes in history on November 16, 1957. It was located on a secluded farm. They found a residence decorated with female body parts, as well as chairs wrapped with human flesh and masks made from 3 faces, and waste paper baskets built from heads. One individual handled all of the jobs: Ed Gein. American serial killer Edward Theodore Ed Gein was responsible for several murders. Gein was only found to be responsible for 2 murders. Because of the several films that were largely based on him, many people think that Gein is much more well-known than he already is. The Butcher of Plainfield, the Plainfield Butcher, the Mad Butcher, and the Plainfield Ghoul were other names for him. Their mother raised Ed Gein and Henry Gein on their 160-acre farm outside of Plainfield, Wisconsin. She was a devoted woman who loved and fiercely protected her sons. She kept them busy working on the farm and away from women. His inebriated father went dead in 1940. His brother Henry officially died fighting a grass fire on May 16, 1944, a number of years later. Soon after that, his mother had her first stroke. In 1945, she had a second stroke and passed suddenly. Ed was abandoned. The home's upstairs, parlor, and his mother's bedroom were all then locked by Gein. He lived in the other bedroom, kitchen, and shed of the big house. He stopped on the farm because of a government program that gave him a stipend. He worked menial jobs for locals to supplement his income. Ed read books about human anatomy and Nazi experimentation conducted in incarceration camps. He was fascinated by everything, especially the female anatomy. He was initially vandalized in 1947. He once stumbled upon an item in the newspaper about a woman who had just been buried. Around Gein's mother's grave, the first body was found in a burial. In fact, one account claims that his mother was involved in one of the first grave robbers. Gein continued similar behavior for the ensuing 8 years. He would constantly scan the newspaper for new bodies. He would frequently go to the graveyard on full moons. Gein would empty the grave of the complete female corpse, or just the desired parts, refill the soil, and take the items he had taken home. Gein did several bizarre things with the deceased bodies. Skin and bones would be used to build his creations. In order to be consumed later, the organs would be kept in the refrigerator. He was charged with necrophilia and accused of having intercourse with the corpses as well, although he denied this since they smelled too horrible. Gein later started killing people because he believed that fresher bodies would make greater additions to his collection. 6 miles from his house in Pine Grove, Mary Hogan, a 50-year-old divorcee and owner of a local pub, was Ed Gein's first victim. On the afternoon of December 8, 1954, he shot her in the head with his .32 caliber handgun. He put her body in his pickup and drove back to his shed. The tavern was vacant and covered with a huge bloodstain when a customer wandered inside. There was a used .32 cartridges nearby. In the parking lot, blood splatters ended in what seemed to be pickup truck tire marks. Before being taken away, Mary Hogan appeared to have been shot. No information was available to the police about what had happened to her. A few weeks later, Gein discussed it with Elmo Uick, the owner of a nearby sawmill. Gein said, "She's not lost, she's at the farm right now." He didn't clarify to Uick what he meant by saying. There may have been more victims in the years that followed. Little is known for certain about Gein prior to November 16, 1957, when he shot and killed Bernice Worden inside her Plainfield company. He used a .22 rifle that he had on him. He took the body home in the company pickup after closing the store. The cash register was also taken by Gein. Bernice Worden's son, Frank, frequently helped her run the shop. That morning, he had gone deer hunting. His mother wasn't there when he got back, and the store was closed with the lights on. The cash register was stolen, and the floor was stained with blood, he further noticed. Frank Worden discussed his observations with the sheriff, Art Schley, during their conversation. He perused the list of purchases from the previous morning. One of them is for a half-gallon of antifreeze. Ed Gein had stopped by the previous evening just before closing, Worden recalled. He had promised to bring antifreeze the next morning. After discovering Frank wouldn't be there, Gein grabbed the cash register, so he suspected Gein had planned a crime. Worden let the sheriff know about it. Captain Lloyd Scofoster and the sheriff traveled to the farm, which is located 7 miles outside of Plainfield. Ed Gein wasn't there and the house was dark when the police showed up. When they arrived at the grocery store, they took Gein's usual path and observed him getting ready to board his truck. The sheriff pulled him over and told him to get in the police car so he could be questioned. Sheriff Schley said nothing about Bernice Worden's passing. Before Gein said, he thought someone was trying to frame him for the murder. Schley took Gein into custody at that point. Sheriff Schley and Captain Scofoster made their way back to Gein's house with a number of policemen. The house's doors were locked, but the shed door behind it was unlocked. They found a woman's dead body inside, hanging from an upside-down crossbeam. The legs were separated by large spaces, and a long cut from the genitalia nearly reached the throat. The throat and head were missing. The anus and genitalia were also missing. After being dissected, Bernice Worden was transformed into a deer. The house was pitch black and had no electricity. They had no choice but to scour it with oil lamps, lanterns, and flashlights. The surroundings appeared to have not recently undergone a thorough cleaning. Unwanted goods including cartons, tin cans, old papers, periodicals, silverware, and books were crammed into the few rooms that weren't nailed shut. Authorities conducted a home search and found whole human bones and fragments, wastebasket made of human skin covering several chair seats, skulls on his bedposts, female skulls, some with the top sawn off, bowls made from human skulls, a corset made from a female torso skin from shoulders to waist, leggings made from human leg skin, masks made from the skin of female heads, Mary Hogan's face mask in a paper bag, Mary Hogan's skull in a box, Bernice Worden's entire head in a burlap sack, Bernice Worden's heart in a plastic bag in front of Gein's pot-bellied stove, 9 vulvae in a shoebox, a young girl's dress and the vulvas of 2 females judged to have been about 15 years old, a belt made from female human nipples, 4 noses, a pair of lips on a window shade drawstring, a lampshade made from the skin of a human face, fingernails from female fingers. These items were photographed at the state crime lab before being destroyed. In response to questions, Gein acknowledged to investigators that between 1947 and 1952, he made as many as 40 nightly excursions to 3 local cemeteries to unearth recently interred bodies while he was in a daze-like state. On about 30 of those visits, he asserted, he came out of his coma in the cemetery, left the grave immaculate, and left empty-handed. On other occasions, he transported the newly deceased, middle-aged women's bodies home, tanned their skins, and made his paraphernalia out of them. He thought their graves mirrored that of his mother. Gein was admitted to the Central State Hospital for the criminally insane. He was made out to be crazy. The doctors thought he liked his mother, but in reality, he hated her, which is why he killed old people. Legend has it that Mary Hogan looked like his mother. Gein said that he denied being a necrophile or a cannibal. He admitted stealing from graves. Several people were interested in the crime's genuine nature. Many thousands of individuals traveled to Plainfield to view the murder farm. The structure was eventually set on fire by an unidentified person or persons. On March 20, 1958, Plainfield locals thought the old home to be a demonic stronghold. Artifacts from the farm were auctioned off after the arson, and Gein's Ford death car brought in the most money. At Christmas 1957, Gein was diagnosed as insane. Gein was legally crazy when he was convicted of killing Worden in 1968, but he was confined to Waupun State Hospital for the rest of his life. Gein passed suddenly from cancer on July 26, 1984, in Madison, Wisconsin, at the age of 78. He was buried in Plainfield, close to the graves of his family. Thank you for watching another amazing video from our true crime team. Like, comment, and subscribe. And stay tuned to our next real-life true crime video.